the sterling introduction that I received and your reception of that short bit of tape there, which we prepared just to show you what we've been doing currently. I think that we're probably in for an interesting evening. Now, I must say that, first of all, I have cut down rather considerably, in fact, all the way on doing the tricks. Hold on. Hold on there. I cut down on doing the tricks because this is not a public performance. This is, well, more or less preaching to the choir, as they say. I think you folks are pretty well convinced that these things aren't true, that there's lots of fraud and fakery going on up there. And I don't have to convince you of that fact, but it's more important to us at this time, I think, to get into a discussion of why and what the challenges are that face us and the challenges that we can offer to those people who claim that there are all sorts of mystical powers. Now, there may be. We don't know one way or the other whether there are mystical powers, but I can tell you, as a magician, that I have a pretty good grasp of psychology, and I know how the public's mind works, how that mindset can work against them, for them on occasion, but to a considerable extent, as far as our work is concerned, that mindset works against them. As a magician, I tell people, be very careful. You can make too many assumptions in your life, and they sort of snort and snarl and say, nah, not me. No. We have an expression in the United States, I'm from Missouri. Missouri says that they have to be shown. They don't believe anything without being shown. And you'll hear the mumbling, no, I'm from Missouri. Really? Then I proceed to show them that they have made a great number of assumptions, as I'm showing you right now. You assumed when I stepped to this microphone that I was using it. I'm not. That microphone is completely dead. I'm using the wireless microphone, which is under my tie here, you see. But that small assumption won't cost you anything. It won't cost you a thing, of course not. It's not going to cost you your emotional stability. It's not going to cost you your power of reasoning. It's not going to cost you money. It certainly won't cost you your life. But we're going to talk about this evening things that can cost you any of those things. Pardon me, I'm recovering from a cold that I got in Beijing. As you were just told, I just came back from 2 weeks in Beijing. I went to attend one conference there, and it was rather spaced out from this particular conference, and luckily they announced that they were having a second conference on a slightly different subject immediately following it, and I got myself invited to that. So 2 weeks in Beijing, and now here in Australia. I have to tell you, pardon me, I'm very sorry about this. I think I need some homeopathic medicine. Or acupuncture, perhaps, something like that. Any glass of water would do. And if you're stuck in any part of your anatomy, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to hurt like hell. I will tell you a bit of an anecdote that you folks will particularly appreciate, I trust. I have one of those Darwin fish on the rear end of my car, you might suspect. You know the one I refer to, the outline of the fish with the word Darwin written inside. There's little tiny legs on it. And this is placed there mainly to annoy certain people. It works very well. I had it on my car, and I stepped out of a motion picture theater several months ago. And as I made my way to the car, a gentleman followed along beside me. I guess you don't have this experience, but every now and then you find somebody who's just passing in the street and they go. They think they've seen you someplace, but they have no idea where. And they usually don't identify it with television. But this chap sort of followed along and stayed at a distance and waited for him to say something. He said, you're that chap, I said, yes, I'm on television frequently. He said, oh, well, he said, yes, I remember seeing you. Just then we reached my car. Again, excuse me. And he saw the Darwin fish on the back of the car. He looked and he said, oh, you're an Episcopalian. yes, that puzzled me too. And I said, no, what makes you think that? And he said, well, I have a friend who's an Episcopalian. He has one of these on his car. And I said, perhaps not the same one. And he looked at it. Has little feet on it. I said, yes, hoping that it would dawn on him any moment at all what it was all about. Darwin. Now, where is Darwin? I said, it's in Australia. And he said, oh, then you're in Australia. I said, no, sir, I'm not in Australia, and frankly, I don't think this conversation is going anywhere. Thank you. Good evening. I left my car and I drove off. Seriously, folks, somewhat depressed that this gentleman didn't identify that word Darwin, that name Darwin, with Charles Darwin. I fear that there are so many people out there who just don't make that association. And I think they should. I think that should spring to their minds immediately. What a wonderful discovery about the history of our world, about science, about reality. To know that Charles Darwin came to this part of the world, spent a lot of time and a lot of his genius here, went back and wrote a book that has so affected our knowledge of the universe. Oh, I forgot to mention one other thing. We talked a minute ago about assumptions, remember? You also assume that I can see you, and I can't because I have no lenses. These frames. Got you again. I have no idea what you look like, pardon me. And because I can't see you at all, I'm just looking at a blur. Oh my God. Yes. Well, now I know. Folks, you can be misled and you can be deceived like anyone else. And people say, I guess you can't, Mr. Randi. Oh, don't ever think that I can't. Sophia Loren, there's a perfect case. How does she look that good at that age? It's incredible. That's not oil of Olay or some sort of cosmetic. That's witchcraft. And I would like to do more research on that very shortly. So, I apologize for American politics at the moment. Sorry about that. Yes, I am an American citizen now, born in Canada, but actually an American citizen at this point in my career. And we have just done something which is very difficult to do. We have elected a president we haven't any idea who he is. And we also elected a dead governor, as you may have heard. Who will probably serve as well as most of the others. But we don't really know, do we? I am on total attention to this moment. If someone should come running in the door and announce that the results are one way, I may be asking for political, well, you know what I mean. I may stay here. Let's put it that way. Now, you did see something on that tape, which I might as well get out of my crawl right now. I did this silly thing with the pen that falls, and this is sort of a standard piece of the repertoire. I do this experiment with my audiences, and I say, we're going to do a psychokinesis experiment, okay? That sounds like a dreadful rash you get on your neck, but actually it's part of parapsychology. I say to them, we're all going to concentrate. I'm going to place the pen here on this glass, and then I'm going to walk away, and I want us all to concentrate very, very hard on the end of the pen that's sticking towards me. Concentrate with your minds. Put out an effort of ESP, psychokinetic power, all together now. Concentrate. Come on. I know you can do it. With this mass of skeptical minds here all working together, if you could just get over that skepticism, we would be able to make this pen move. All right? I made it. I knew we could do it. Thank you very much. So that's the trickery out of the way. Let's move right ahead. I'm going to deal with PhDs. Oh, no, not them. Yes, I have a theory about PhDs. First of all, I want to make it very clear that this is quite sincerely spoken now, I quite mean it. I am absolutely in awe of people with substantial academic credentials. I have total respect for the process of learning and of education. In fact, that's what we support through the James Randi Educational Foundation. I am very enthusiastic, particularly about young people being educated, and being educated in critical thinking, to me, is one of the most important aspects of that. But along the way, I run into this constant objection. What are you as a magician doing in front of an audience, in front of an audience, trying to tell them what they should be thinking and how they should be thinking about these things? But you're not a PhD, that's quite true. And, well, I just get a little organized here. Excuse me 1 second. That's much better. No, much better, yes. I, again, have total respect for these folks, but occasionally I run into PhDs who flaunt their letters at me. I don't have an academic degree. I have an honorary one from the University of Indianapolis. It's a Doctor of Humane Letters. I have no idea what that means. Maybe only A through E, I'm not sure. That covers. But it enables me, if I wish to put doctor in front of my name, I don't do that, however. And as I say, the PhDs sometimes aggravate me because they throw that at me. And I've developed a theory about PhDs, which may or may not be correct. I believe in the process of scientific investigation, so I will give you the results of my long experience in the field. I have studied PhDs. It's a subject of study. And I note, and this is something that's never been brought to anyone's attention before, to my knowledge, that when PhDs are created, and they are created, there's a ceremony. It takes place on a stage about like this, and there's a table with a lot of little diplomas with little ribbons around them, you see. And there's a mass of people down here in funny clothes with a square hat. It's very weird. And they sit down there, and they, one at a time, mount the stairs, come across the stage. At this point, they're not PhDs, remember. This is an ordinary human being. Crossing the stage, gets to the table, and a gentleman stands there. He's in charge, obviously. Pardon me, I'm very sorry. And he wields this enormous power to create PhDs. He does that by taking one of these little rolls of paper and placing it in one hand and shaking the other hand. It's a process like this. And at that moment, if you listen carefully, trumpets are heard. I've heard them. And that person is now an exalted person, crosses the stage, goes down the stairs, and is never going to be an ordinary person again. That's a PhD. But why does the man who hands out these pieces of paper, why does he wear gloves, I ask you? He wears white gloves. There's got to be a reason for this. I put my massive brain to work on this, and I've come up with a possible solution, which I will share with you now. I believe that there is on those bits of paper a genetically engineered chemical, which, once absorbed through the skin, goes directly into the blood to the brain, paralyzes a part of the brain in the speech center. The distinct part of it is so carefully engineered, it's just wonderful science and technology. Whoa, overcomes me all the time. It paralyzes the speech center of the brain so that 2 sentences from then on cannot be pronounced. Those 2 sentences are, I don't know and I was wrong. Because I have never heard a PhD utter either one of those sentences. Oh, I've seen them try. Not a pretty sight. They have a very hard time getting it out. They can't even write it. The pen runs all over the paper. It's a terrible thing. So that's my theory of PhDs, and it's all in jest in case I get lynched by a set of PhDs immediately upon leaving this auditorium. Now, that's my idea of PhDs, but I'm going to show you what PhDs can believe in. I got a call, a couple of years back. This $1 million prize that we're offering was so widely advertised and has been around for years now. I was told had been won. No question of it. Mr. Randi, this is a PhD from Lawrence Livermore Laboratories in California. This is a bunch of physicists that you don't trifle with. These are heavies. And this one gentleman, a PhD in physics, called me and he said, there's a fellow named Randi Marcus here. We brought him all the way over from Israel to test him, and he has the power of psychokinesis. He can move objects with his mind. Oh, really? I wasn't too worried about losing $1 million. I've never been terribly worried about that. But coming from a PhD, I thought, well, perhaps we already have something here. This is what Randi Marcus did for this group of PhDs at this leading physics lab called Lawrence Livermore Labs in California, US of A. First of all, he said, get me a simple box of wooden matches, similar to this one. They did. They weighed it within micrograms. They x-rayed it. They shot lasers at it. They examined it in ultraviolet and infrared light, all wavelengths you can possibly imagine. They photographed it. They studied the matches, took the matches, did chemical analysis, perfectly ordinary match. Yep, nothing strange about it at all. Then why? They said there were no magnets or threads or wires or anything like that in the box, and yet he was able to do this. Now this is what gets the PhDs. Watch this carefully now. He placed it on the back of his hand, and then, just by concentrating with his mind, he made it rise. And it rose up until it was standing on end. Don't laugh, this is science. And then he made it go back down again very slowly as he concentrated on it. Now, I didn't know how this was done. I had no idea, and to this moment I have no... Oh, shucks. What I'm pointing out to you folks is that these very highly educated, very intelligent, very well-trained people went about it the wrong way. But simply by calling someone like Bob Steiner or any of my magician friends in California. Mostly overcome, pardon me. They would have immediately pointed it out that this was a simple children's trick, and more books than one, of course, Bob, right? And one of the books is Martin Gardner's book of impromptu magic tricks. This is a book designed for you to educate yourself in doing simple tricks at parties so you don't have to paint yourself red and run around with a light shade on top of your head in order to be entertaining, you see? And this beats all that, of course. It's very simply done, folks. You too can fool PhDs. Watch. Here's the way you do it. What you do is you leave the box open just a wee bit like that, you see? Turn it face down, and then with some loose skin on the back of your hand, as you close the box, you close it on the skin. Hello? Yes. Close it on the skin like that, and then all you do is you just straighten your hand out, and up she... Oh, wait, wrong place. Silly me. Take two. Close it on the loose skin at the back of the hand like that, and then simply by closing your hand down, up she goes, and then down she goes again. Very simple. Anyone can learn to do it. And you can even do it with Dick Smith matches. And this fooled the PhDs. Well, they then sent Randi Marcus packing. He went back to Israel, and he has not been heard of since, I'm happy to report to you. There was another chap came from Israel some years ago, Geller. Uri Geller, I remember him well. And he was touted as the psychic superstar of the century. Yeah, well, he was. Hey, got on the cover of magazines all over the world, had books written about him by well-meaning but misdirected folks, in my opinion. And he sues me regularly. So when I make these statements about Mr. Geller and his work, I have to be meticulously careful. I have to be very careful. I have to say, when Mr. Geller does his demonstrations, he does them by divine means. He calls upon heavenly powers to enable him to do these things, and all I can tell him is, if he's doing them with heavenly powers, he is doing it the hard way. Because I use abject, shameless trickery to do this. I make no bones about it at all. I am a fake, a liar, a charlatan, a cheat. But I do it with a certain amount of class that may command your respect, if not outright admiration. I'm a magician by trade. I do this to entertain you. Yes, I deceive you, but I do it for purposes of entertainment. Those are the magic words. I don't tell you I've actually got the powers. Now, I'm called upon at all these lectures to do this stupid spoon-bending thing. I feel like I'm a grown person. I'm all grown up now, and I shouldn't have to do this, but the public demand is so great, I can't help myself. I often wonder, about Geller. I often wonder if, at one point in his life, perhaps as a young man, he was interested in a certain young lady, and he went through that traumatic experience of having to meet the father. Whoa, that's a terrible moment when you have to meet the father. Shows up at her house, and she introduces her to the father, and she leaves the room, and the father says, young man, what do you do for a living? He's interested in his daughter's future, of course, just in case something should develop, and he says, I'm a spoon bender, sir. Excuse me, you're a what? I'm a spoon bender. I see you bend spoons. Yep. And people pay you for this? Mm-hmm. Pay me very well. Do you ever straighten spoons? No. I have a friend who does that. It's a different line of work altogether. Now, has spoon bending moved humanity ahead one jot? One bit? Are we better off for being able to bend spoons? I don't think so. But apparently some folks think so. So I will make my weary way into the audience here, and I will choose it. There's a likely subject sitting right there. Sit. This requires no talent whatsoever. Right. No exertion on your part whatsoever. No lines to learn, nothing like that. But you look like a pleasant young lady, and I'm sure you will be of great help. I would like you to, this spoon I got from, it says something in China on it. Stainless steel, yes. I didn't get it in China, but everything seems to be made there now. Would you hold on to each end of the spoon like that between your fingers, please? There we go. Oh, you're a natural for show business, I can tell you that right now. I'm just going to stroke the spoon very gently. You're laughing. You think I feel like a fool stroking the spoon? Hold it a little higher, if you would, please. Thank you. Yes, cooperate now. I'm just going to give it a little wiggle here. Are you holding it tightly? No, good. All right. Oh, look. Did you see that? It seems to get flexible, like rubber. Look, see? Oh, look at that. Well, wonders never cease. Look at it. It just seems to be getting flexible. All right, let go of it for a second here. I'll just hold it up where everyone can see it. In fact, I'll go back up to the stage here, where everyone can see it a bit better. It is, after all, a tiny spoon, but that's what they give you with coffee in this country. So you just stroke it like this. It gets all floppy. It's not weird. Just get all like that. And the more you hold it here, the floppier it gets. Look, the illusion is so strong. Many people say they swear that the thing actually bent. Look, Oh, even that's a surprise to me. I will make my way down to this young lady. Would you hold your two hands up in front of you like that? Very good. Hallelujah. There you go. That's a souvenir. Mr. Geller thanks you. I thank you. Mr. Geller does it by divine powers. That was a trick. Now I'm going to show you another specialty of Mr. Geller. He does this one also by divine powers. He did it in laboratories in California. California comes in for a lot of this, don't they? Some reason or other, they seem to fall for this stuff rather easily. This is in the Stanford research labs there, not Stanford University. Don't blame them for that. Again, pardon me, I'm sorry. He did a demonstration for them which they found to be supernatural in nature. I'm going to do it for you with any luck, and then I'm going to repeat it in slow motion so you'll be able to catch me at it, and it will thereby be educational. Educational as well as entertaining. Now I'd like to borrow a gentleman's wristwatch, one with hands on it preferably, a real watch that is, not one of these digital terrible things. Do you have one there, sir? All right. I'll borrow your watch if I may. Oh, thank you so much. Very good. The gentleman is, this is a Seiko. A Seiko. Very good make watch. All right. I will stand right about here where everyone can pretty well see me. This is a Seiko watch, which is, it says Friday the 10th. That's right. And we'll see if we agree here. Well, I am about 2 minutes slower than you are, but that's close enough for government work, like they say. Now, I would like, if you would, sir, just check the time on that. Is that 20 minutes too, I believe? Just maybe 20 and a half minutes too. And I say 22 minutes too, but we won't argue over the slight difference. Would you open your hand for me? The clean one? Put the finger of your other hand on the back of it. Just one finger on the back of it, like that. Very good. Hold it up like that where everyone can see it. The power is extremely good. In case some of the power gets on you. Oh, I think I hurt myself. Now, let me take a look at the watch. And, not yet. No, I forgot to tell you, sir. You have to concentrate, too. What I'm trying to do is stop the watch and make it run backwards, sir. Not an easy thing. I don't have to go. The union likes it, the magician's union. They often I have music with it too. See it again? Oh, what time does it now say on your watch, sir? 7:15. How time flies when you're having such a good time. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to do it again, but this time I'm going to do it in slow motion, all right? So that you'll be able to catch me at it. And there are 2 moments of truth which I will point out to you during the performance. Flexible hands, the secret of the whole thing. All right, this is the way we do it in slow motion. I would like to do a gentleman's wrist. Well, if I do it that way, we'll be here all evening. So I will move over to you and pick up the watch. Now, what did I do when you first handed it to me? You don't quite recall. Well, I took it like this, you see, and I dangled it a lot. And I turned around, I stepped over here, and I said, I'll stand up here where everyone can see me. This business is very important, this business of just dangling it. That sets in your mind the notion that I'm not touching the body of the watch, which at this point, I am not. I'll do this sort of a thing and transfer it back and forth. And this sells to you, subliminally, really, on a very low level, it sells to you that, oh, the man's not touching the watch at all. How can he possibly influence it in any way? Then comes the moment of truth. I put my hand into it like this. I turn to my watch to compare it, and I say, oh, it says such and such a time. And as I do this, I come up with this finger, place it underneath the winding stem, which is down at the side on this Seiko, and go click and pull it out like that. You don't notice that because you don't know what to look for, right? Of course. And I look at my watch and I point out, make a great deal of that, and I say it says 19 minutes before 8 o'clock. Now watch the move again. And I turn back to look at this one. I simply go with this finger, just zoop like that, move it across the hat, that's the winding stem. Just move it across like that, zoop like that, and the time changes. Now, I'll move like at 10 to, now it's 10 to 7, as you can see, okay? Then I press the winding stem back in again, and the work is done. But what I do at this moment is, in doing that, I misdirect your attention again by saying, now would you hold the watch, put your finger on the back of it, put your hand up like that, put your finger on the back of it, okay? That keeps them from turning it over, you see? I don't want them to look at it. And then I do this again, oh, I think I hurt myself, you see? All part of the act. Now I use the greatest weapon that the psychics and the magicians have. It's called lying. Don't laugh, it works. And I take the watch from you and I say, not yet. But of course the time has already changed, you see? And I turn back to you and I put it on your hand. And you say, oh, I'm going to watch now. Nothing's happened yet. Wrong! The whole thing. Then I take it from you and I say, oh, and look what time it is now. And you get all astonished and amazed and everybody applauds and it's just wonderful. But that is the way the misdirection. Oh, yeah, please. here, folks, is you didn't know what to look for. You didn't know what was going to happen, so you didn't know what to look for. It was very easy to get away with this sort of thing. But now that I have shown you how this trick, and it's a trick when I do it, divine when Mr. Geller does it. Notice? You got to be very careful with that. I do this trick constantly for audiences, just like you, and I tell them, now that you've seen it, you'll know how it's done in the future. Wrong. Because while I'm standing here telling you how smart you are, well, sir, perhaps you would tell them, what time's this day now? 6:20. You see, while I'm telling you how smart you are, I just did it again. So a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Thank you very much, sir. The lesson here, folks, is this. I'm serious now. It is not stupid, uneducated, unsophisticated dullards out there that fall for the supernatural, the paranormal, the occult. It's folks like you and me. We can all be deceived. Because we can deceive ourselves more easily than someone else can deceive us. All they really have to do is set us on the path, and we will deceive ourselves. Pardon me, a good example of that is the faith healers. Now, I noticed on television just before leaving the hotel up here that this weekend, and I didn't get the day and I didn't get the channel, I'm sorry, but this weekend there is a major program coming up on Australian television about the faith healing racket. And Benny Hinn is one of those who is featured. Do you know the name Benny Hinn in this country? Oh yeah, okay, he's gotten here too, I see. Well, Benny Hinn, I almost created Benny Hinn, because when I wrote my book, The Faith Eaters, some years back, and I exposed people like W.V. Grant and David Paul and Peter Popoff and such, pretty well put them out of business. One of them went to prison, as a matter of fact. Their adherents didn't look around and say, hey, I guess I was swindled. I won't let that happen again. No, all they said was, oh, he swindled me. I'm going to find one that won't swindle me. And they simply turned to the only one who was left, who was Benny Hinn. So I pretty well created his clientele for him. And he's doing very strongly. But I'm going to let you in, and this is the first time I have announced this in public. This is a select group, and will understand why I'm so concerned over this. I was called up, 7, 8 months ago now, by a producer, an English producer, UK, who wanted me to go up to Toronto, Canada to investigate Benny Hinn. And I did just that. It was a very interesting episode. Pardon me. I went along with the red wig and the dye that I used to dye my beard red, and the black contact lenses that I put in, so that they don't, upon seeing me, going, yeah, right away, you know, as they do with Barry Williams all the time. And I was in disguise in Toronto. I infiltrated the group. They got me a press pass, which I hung around my neck, and I got into the main floor. It was in Maple Leaf Gardens. If you know Toronto, Canada at all, you'll know that that is a huge, huge arena in downtown Toronto, and it was jam-packed. There were, by estimation of the press that same night, there were over 2,000 people outside on the street watching it on TV monitors. They just couldn't accommodate anymore. And I won't go through the whole description of it, because that will be produced eventually as a special documentary on Benny Hinn. And Reverend Hinn, Mr. Hinn, is not going to much care for it, I can assure you, and it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I saw one episode, which I'll share with you there. There was a child, and I'm not medically expert, so I just don't know, but it might have been cerebral palsy, I'm not sure. The child was pretty well out of it. He was dressed in an exercise suit, appeared to be about maybe 8 or 9 years of age, and the father was carrying him in his arms, and the child was flailing around and was really quite out of it, and obviously very, very seriously afflicted. And the mother was holding on to the husband as they wandered around, trying to get up on the stage. I'm coming and going here. Trying to get up on the stage so that Reverend Hinn could use his healing methodologies. Sure. And Hinn will not, none of the faith healers will ever allow someone who's truly, obviously, visibly afflicted get anywhere near the stage. No one in a wheelchair ever gets up there unless it's their wheelchairs. And they put them into the wheelchairs. This was really very sad to see, but we were in a position where I could see it, the group that was with me could see it very clearly. The father kept charging up and down the aisles, being turned back by security people, and people who looked like football players, believe me, big shoulders, hired by him with the special red and green badges on. And they were constantly directing him around the crowd and down to the rear end of the hall again. Never got anywhere near him at all until he and his wife made a decision they were going to do a rush. And down the main aisle he came charging, literally hooting all these people out of the way, the wife running in advance of him, pushing the bodyguards out of the way, and the security people ran up the stairs, right by the security people, really got through them, and out into the center of the stage with his son in his arms. And he said, "Reverend, we've followed you for 20 cities around Canada and the United States, and I've never been able to get to the healing stage. Heal my son, please, heal my son," tears streaming down his face. And Hinn handled it in a very professional manner. This is what he did. He held up his hand to quiet the crowd, and he said, "We are in the presence of God Almighty." And the crowd was quite hushed. He said, "And God is going to bring His healing power to this little boy." And for a second, it occurred to me, maybe this is a setup. This might be a setup. These people might be working with him. That was soon dissipated, however. Hinn went to the child, held a hand on his forehead while he was in the father's arms and writhing around, this sort of a thing. And he held the other hand up and he said, "All of you join in prayer to Almighty God to bring His healing power to this boy." And he pressed him on the forehead. The child didn't react at all, was still writhing around. And the parents were standing there visibly crying, just uncontrollably. And he said, "Jesus, bring your power of healing to this little boy. Bring it now, or bring it an hour from now. Bring it a day or a week from now. When your will desires, bring this power of healing to this boy." Hallelujah! And they all yelled hallelujah. Hinn turned the man around. The two security people grabbed the two of them, took them to the edge of the stage, and from where we were, over at that side, we filmed it. Rushed them down the stairs, along the aisle, to the outside doors, pushed them out into the street, slammed the doors behind them, and drew the curtains. And they were out of the street within 10 or 12 seconds of leaving that stage. And Hinn was right back there screaming, "Hallelujah, now we're going to read from the good book." And he started to read from the Bible. That piece of recording will never hit the air. You know that. Well, it will when that program is broadcast, and Hinn is not going to be happy about that. This is the kind of thing... This is the kind of thing, ladies and gentlemen, that should give us all good reason to be proud of the fact that we're here today and that we think the way we do and that we act the way we do. My respect for the whole skeptical movement, fighting pseudoscience and fighting quackery such as this, is always enhanced when I find that good people can gather together in force like you have today and by being seen and being heard, make sure that the world knows that we're here and that we're serious about this thing. I'm going to show you a piece of tape now. I will set you up for it very briefly. This also deals with the faith healing racket. The tape you're about to see needs just a bit of preparation. We investigated a man named W.V. Grant years ago. W.V. Grant is the one that eventually went to prison for income tax evasion, not for what he was doing that was really criminal in my estimation, swindling people and pretending to heal them. I'll give you a quick walkthrough, a sort of a reenactment of what, a pen will do, of what Grant would do. He has an FM microphone similar to this one, but a handheld one, in his hand, and this is what he does. Big Bible underneath his arm with yellow slips of paper sticking out of the end of it. He opens the Bible where a yellow slip of paper is inserted, and he reads a passage from the Bible. Takes out the yellow slip and puts it in his pocket, closes the Bible, says, "Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah." I'm driven to say, "Bill, sir, what is your name?" He steps to a gentleman sitting in a wheelchair on the aisle. The fellow says, "My name is Bill." And he says, "Have I ever met you before, Bill?" And he says, "No, Reverend." He said, Then you can tell the people that, Bill, do you have arthritis of the knees? He says, "Yes, Reverend." "Did you tell that to me or to anyone?" He says, "No, I didn't." You're going to go and see Dr. Gladstone. What is the name of your doctor? Dr. Gladstone. "Did you tell that to me or anyone?" "No, I didn't." Dr. Gladstone's going to say, "Bill, you don't need me anymore because you've been healed, and you've been healed by Dr. G." I'm really coming and going here, something awful. Sorry about that. "I see an angel standing over a doorway, Bill. There's a number 116 on that doorway. Where do you live?" "I live at 116 Tate Avenue." "You tell that to me or anyone else?" "No, I didn't." "I see." And that angel is saying, oh, the angel is smiling. Hallelujah, the angel is smiling because you are healed, Bill. I want you to stand up out of that wheelchair. Stand up carefully, run over, touch the wall there, come back and tell us who healed you. Hallelujah, hallelujah. And Bill gets up very unsteadily out of the wheelchair and goes over to the wall slowly, touches the wall, tears streaming down his face, comes back, is about to sit down in the wheelchair. And Grant says to him, "Is that your wheelchair, Bill?" And he looks at it and says, "Well, yes." He says, "No, you don't need that wheelchair." Throws it aside. Says, "Sit down in that chair because you've been healed by Dr. Jesus." How does he do it? How does he do it? Is Bill a stooge? A shill? No, that would be far too dangerous because Bill could talk, couldn't he? No, Bill really genuinely thinks he's been healed. And Bill is not a stooge. But we went there 3 hours earlier. I wearing the red wig and the dyeing the beard red, etc., the black contact lenses, etc., and with an artificial tummy, which I don't really have to put on anymore, I notice. And the terrible suit in disguise. We went there 3 hours earlier. At a certain point, while people were filing in very slowly and taking up the seats, we saw this fellow named Bill coming down the aisle very unsteadily. Mrs. Grant, the wife of Reverend Grant, went rushing up to him. And she said, "Hallelujah, brother, hallelujah. I'm Mrs. Grant, Reverend Grant's wife. Are you here to be healed by Jesus?" And he says, "Yes, well, I hope so." "No, you know so. Why don't you sit in this wheelchair here? We have these I don't need the wheelchair." "No, sit in the wheelchair. Then I'll bring you up to the front, and you'll be right at the edge, and that way Reverend Grant will know that you're looking for healing." Oh, all right. And he sits down in the wheelchair. On the way down the aisle, "Why don't you fill out this form? Give us the name of your doctor and your address, and the name of the hospital that you go to, and what your problem is and what you think about it, and all this information." He fills it up. She takes it from him and she says, "Now I'll take this back to our accountant. He'll make sure that you're on our list of free subscriptions to Reverend Grant's journal," with a picture of Reverend Grant on the cover of each one. Wow, how can I pass that up? And it's taken backstage. It's shown to Grant. Grant, on a yellow slip of paper, writes, "Bill, 116 Tate Avenue, arthritis of the knees, Dr. Gladstone, Grace Hospital," all of the information we heard. How do we know that? Because we went through the garbage afterwards and we found that slip of paper along with dozens of others that were stuck in the Bible. He wasn't reading from the Bible. He was reading from the yellow slip of paper the information that he had to give to Bill, who's sitting on the corner. That's the information. And how did he get in the wheelchair? Well, we know that now, don't we? Wasn't his wheelchair, but everyone there assumed that he came in the wheelchair. And when they threw it aside, he's healed because he's no longer in the wheelchair. That's how insidious this business is, folks. And that's one of the methods that they use to do it. I'm going to show you a bit of tape now with a different man on it. I solved the problem with Reverend Popoff. He was better than Grant was, much better. And if you look at this, you will see the whole procedure developed right before you. I'll tell you very briefly that I went to the state attorney in California, Joe Russolino, and I laid this out before him, all the evidence, the videotape, the whole thing, and he shook his head. He said, "That's really terrible." I said, "Yes. What are you going to do about it, Joe?" He said, "Oh, that's a reverend. I can't come out against Reverend anyone. I won't get reelected." My next question was, "Joe, is it your job as a politician to get reelected or to do what you were elected to do?" Lunch broke up at that point. I remember I paid the bill. And that was the end of that. So I went over his head. I went to a leading television personality in the United States, Johnny Carson, and this is what we did with that particular episode on the tape.
Now, you got a small piece of tape here we're going to look at. Would you tell us what we're going to see here and how you did this and what it's supposed to show?
Well, we've researched Peter Popoff very, very well, and Mr. Popoff, pardon me, Reverend Popoff, is not going to be very happy with this, I don't think. You're going to see, first of all, a short segment of tape as you would see it if you're watching it at home. This is what Popoff featured on his own program. You will apparently see a healing. Now, we went to Houston, Texas, and we discovered that the man was wearing, of all things, a hearing aid in his left ear, and a man who heals the deaf, Popoff himself.
Oh, I see.
And a man who heals the deaf and the blind isn't going to have much use for a hearing aid. One would think, if God is speaking to him, maybe someone else is speaking to him. So when we got to San Francisco, we put this fellow Alec Jason as an expert in electronics and a surveillance man, and he put a scanner, electronic scanner on it, and we picked up something interesting. But first, let's look at the first cut of tape.
All right, this is the tape as you would see it if you were watching the show. Okay, watch the monitors.
Who is Harold? I just believe that God is going to burn those cataracts off of your eyes right now. 34788 Foothill Drive. I tell you, the angels of God are round about your home. Just take those glasses off and put your eyes. If you've got cataracts, if you've got glaucoma, I want you just to put your hand over your eyes as I pray for these precious ones. Sister, you've got eye problems, to take your glasses off, lay your hands on your eyes. Here it comes. God is going to give these precious ones divine surgery. Right now, Jesus. That's it. That's the anointing of the Holy Ghost. Praise God. Praise God. I'll tell you, the anointing is flowing through this place. Thank you, Jesus.
Okay, now let's recap what we've seen here. These two people who were there had not met Popoff before themselves. And yet he calls out his name, and then he called out a number or something?
He called out their address.
Their address.
And they're astonished to hear this, because they didn't tell him. But what you don't know is that his wife has been touring around the audience, getting into conversation. Is Jesus going to heal you today? I see. Where do you live? This kind of thing. And they've filled out healing cards in advance of the program and handed them in. They're now backstage, and someone is sitting at a transmitter backstage. Let's see that same segment again. But now you will have the advantage of knowing what Peter Popoff is hearing in his left ear through a hearing aid.
Jerry Reed.
Is it Jerry?
Reed.
Reed? Is it Reed? Jerry Reed?
It's a woman. She's praying for her husband, Harold.
Who is Harold?
He's got cataracts.
I just believe that God is going to burn those cataracts off of your eyes right now.
They live at 34788 Foothill Drive.
34788 Foothill Drive. I tell you, the angels of God are round about your home. Just take those glasses off and put your eyes. If you've got cataracts,
She's got eye problems too.
you've got glaucoma, I want you just to put your hand over your eyes as I pray for these precious ones. Sister, you've got eye problems, to take your glasses off, lay your hands on your eyes. Here it comes. God is going to give these precious ones divine surgery. Right now, Jesus.
Well, that's disturbing when you see it.
It is indeed.
You tend to laugh at it, and yet these people obviously are so impressed with what's going
Oh,
on.
they're absolutely impressed. You see people collapse on the floor, tears running down their faces, believing that their kids with drug addiction are going to be healed now because he knew their name. He says he's talking to God, that God speaks directly to him because he's an anointed minister. And three things amaze me about that. First of all, it turns out that God's frequency, I didn't know he used radio, is 39.170 megahertz. And God is a woman, obviously, and sounds exactly like Popoff's wife, Elizabeth.
Has he seen this tape, though?
No, he does not know about this until this very moment.
Interesting. Okay, we'll take a break.
Now, the sad news is that Reverend Popoff, shortly after that, was broadcast on this major American television program, absolutely major. He promptly declared bankruptcy and went out of business. He's back again. He's on one of the cable networks doing exactly the same act because people never learn. You cannot convince the true believer, no matter what evidence you bring up contrary to what they would prefer to believe. They will continue to believe to the death. And in this case, I do mean to the death. At the time that we got Popoff in that particular bind there, we heard from his comptroller that he was bringing in $4.3 million a month tax-free. And I don't think there's anyone in this audience who makes that kind of money. I sure as hell don't. I'm in the wrong business. Now, I'm going to tell you about something which is, I understand has taken a rather full hold here in Australia. I have in my hand Natural Life. This is from the United States, sold by a leading pharmaceutical chain there. Cold and flu. It just says cold and flu. It doesn't say medicine. Doesn't say remedy, treatment, nothing like that. It just says cold and flu. So if you want cold and flu, you take this. And new superior formula. You tell me how superior this formula can get, and it's triple level potency. Let's look at the ingredients in here. Ingredient. Oh, major ingredient is arsenicum album 9X. That's arsenic trioxide. That doesn't sound good. Oh, 9X. Well, I forgot to mention, this is homeopathic. So that means there's nothing in it, including no arsenic. What is homeopathy all about? Very briefly, folks, this is what it's all about. There are 4 major rules. The first rule is you do a proving. The proving consists of this. This is 220 years old. It can't be all bad. Right. The royal family, after all, uses homeopathic medicine. You know the state of the House of Windsor, need I mention it? Homeopathic medicine's first rule is you do a proving. A proving consists of taking a well person. That means somebody who's probably warm and can stand on his own, I don't know. A well person, and you give them substance X. We'll say substance X is boiled dandelions or something like that. So you give them that substance, and they then develop symptoms A, B, and C. The symptoms A, B, and C will say, first symptom is they get very bright red in the face. The second one is the head swells up round like a balloon. And the third is that every 20 minutes they fall on the ground a dead faint. Well, those are symptoms you'd be likely to notice. And they write that down in the book that if they take boiled dandelions, that's what they get. That's the first rule of homeopathy. That's called the proving. You write that down in your book. And then you wait. Well, you have lots of other provings in your book, but a patient walks in someday, maybe the next day, maybe not for years, with very red face and head swollen up like a balloon. Whoa, I remember that. You go through the book, you look at the patient and you say, tell me, sir, every 20 minutes do you fall down on the ground a dead faint? And the patient says, yes. Doctor, you have superior absorbing powers. Yes, that does happen to me. Ah, well then homeopathy has the cure for you. That's boiled dandelions. So take boiled dandelions and it'll go away. That's the second rule. The third rule is you don't do that. No, the third rule is you give them what they call, in quotes, quote, highly attenuated, unquote, dosage of boiled dandelions. Highly attenuated. Extremely dilute. You ain't heard dilute yet. Wait till I get into it. You may think that that's 1 part in 1,000. You say, whoa, get out of here. No, the first, this is the next rule of homeopathy. The first thing you do is to prepare the medicine. You take 1 part of the boiled dandelions and you mix it with 10 parts of water, then you success it. That's a fancy term for shaking it. But it has to be done 10 times in 3 different dimensions, like 10 times this way, and 10 times this way, and 10 times this way. And only 10 is the magic number in homeopathy, by the way. Remember, 10, like, yeah, 10. That's the magic word, okay? Number, pardon me. That's a 1 solution. That's 1 part in 10, you follow? Okay. Then, to prepare a 2 solution, You take 1 part of that and put it in 10 parts of water, and you shake it up 10 times, and that's a 2 solution, 1 part in 100. It's the number of zeros after the 1. See? Okay? That's to do. 3 solution, 4 solution. Keep going. You ain't there yet. 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, up to 20, 24. Oh, forgot. When you get to 24, by the way, 1 part and 1 followed by 24 parts of water, you've reached Avogadro's limit, which means there's only a possibility of there being 1 molecule of the original substance present in whatever you've got in your hand at that moment. And if you do it to 10 to the 25th, you've got 1 chance in 10 of there being 1 molecule of it. You follow? That's dilute. They usually like to start at 30, they go up to 50, and they go all the way to 1,500. How dilute is that? That is equivalent, ladies and gentlemen. Martin Gardner, formerly of Scientific American magazine, worked it out for me. Here's what it's equivalent to. It's equivalent to taking 1 grain of rice, crushing it to a powder, dissolving it in a sphere of water the size of the solar system, with the sun at the center and the orbit of Pluto at the outside, and then repeating that process 2 billion times. I'm speaking American billions here, not real billions. I need some of that homeopathy. That's what that means, 1,500. Well, wait a minute now. We also sell another substance. I don't have the box here. Unfortunately, it got lost somewhere along the line. There is a compound in America called Nytol, N-Y-T-O-L. Do you have that here? Nytol. Well, it's a pharmaceutical preparation made by a reputable pharmaceutical company in the United States, and it has methylene dichlorobenzaldehyde, whatever, prophylactic or something in it. I don't know. But it apparently works. I don't use it, but apparently it works. Clinically tested, etc. It's a sleeping thing. It relaxes you so you go to sleep more easily, I'm told. And that comes in a blue box. There's a green box right beside it which says Nytol natural. Natural. It says natural life on here, remember? All natural ingredients. Natural. That's the buzzword here. Well, bird poo is natural too. And so is mud. I don't eat either one or use it for anything therapeutic. Natural. Well, this natural compound says in tiny letters on the box, homeopathic. And what is the active ingredient in the sleeping tablets that they sell you? Caffeine. Because it works the opposite way. You see, if you give that to a well person, well, you follow. And it's not my idea, it's theirs, so don't look at me like that. Caffeine. Well, I called another friend who does mathematics and chemistry and physics and such, and I said, Bob Park of the American Society in the United States, and I said, Bob, I need a figure. If I had these sleeping tablet pills, and they're in the form of pills with milk sugar instead of water, when they sell them in pills, I said, how many pills would I have to eat to make sure that I got 1 molecule of that caffeine? He did the calculations. Are you all seeing? Good. You may fall down laughing when you hear this. You would have to eat 16 swimming pools full of pills. Without the water, that is. I want you to picture that just for a second now. I'm doing a scientific experiment to find out if this works. Okay? I dive into the first pool, eating little brown pastilles I get, gobbling them down. I eat the whole swimming pool full. I'm at the bottom of an empty swimming pool, and the fellow looks down and says, well, Mr. Randi, how do you feel? I said, full, but I don't feel sleepy. Well, second swimming pool, climb up, over to the second swimming pool, in we go. 16 swimming pools in order to get 1 molecule of caffeine. Right. But folks, it's the vibrations. They say it's the vibrations is all that's important. The vibrations, because the caffeine was in there once, remember? So it's the vibrations that count. You're paying for a this is a box full of vibrations. And it costs 70% more than something that does actually work. That's what homeopathy is all about. Well, the latest development in homeopathy, and I'll not spend much of your time with this. This is what we're offering our $1 million prize for. Oh, we offer the $1 million prize, by the way, if the homeopaths, or anyone, in this audience even, can tell us the difference between homeopathic water and non-homeopathic water. They just have to tell us which one's which. They don't want to do that. They say, no, I'm involved in scientific research and I don't do work like that. Well, why don't you take the $1 million and apply it to your laboratory or give it to starving kids or homeless people or something good like that? No, I'm very busy, very busy. Go away. They don't want to face up to it. Brian Josephson, Nobel laureate in Cambridge, England, some time ago challenged the American Physical Society to test homeopathy, and they said, yes, we will, which surprised the hell out of him. And we'll pay all of the costs of it, no matter what they are. This is what my urging, of course. And I said, I will give the $1 million prize as well, at the end of all that, if they can tell us the difference between homeopathic medicine and ordinary water. That was 4 years ago, and we haven't heard back from Brian Josephson, Nobel laureate in physics. Where are you, Brian? Hello? I don't see you around anywhere. He simply won't answer now. He was going to take us up on this challenge. Well, that's what homeopathy is all about, folks. And I think it's a cruel and very nasty farce. It doesn't work. It has zero content in it, and people do depend on it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to introduce you to a special person at this point. Some years back, and you will all be familiar with this, I'm sure, I was called by Channel 9 Australia, and they simply put this problem to me. We're plagued with channelers. These are the people who speak with voices of people that are thousands of years old. Oh, yeah, sure. If you believe that, I've got some swampland in Florida you probably like to snap up at bargain prices. And they said, how can we prove these people aren't real? I said, well, you can't really prove they're not real, but what we can do for you is work out a bit of a project to illustrate to people that these characters can be created. You see, what I had was a secret weapon. The secret weapon was Jose Luis Alba, who's a good friend of mine in Florida, who is a performance artist. Now, what he does with this is he creates a character. And that character he sees all the way through. He demonstrates the character. He makes the character very believable, a living character that will convince people. I talked to him and he said, yes, this is something I think I could get my teeth into, and it's something I've wanted to do for quite some time. I'm not going to tell you the story. I'm going to introduce you to someone that you have already met through the media. And the media has never quite been the same ever since. Ladies and gentlemen, please meet and greet the one and only Carlos. Can we get this mic active again, do you think? Or, yes.
So, welcome. I am Carlos. I guess you remember this. As Mr. Randi said, I was involved with him 12 years ago in a performance where 6 Cities Australia called me.
Yeah, hold on a second. Oh, we have it there? Oh, fine, okay.
Called him because they wanted to prove how easy it was to create a movement out of nothing from scratch. Most of you are very familiar with this performance, and to make the story short, we filmed it sitting over a house 12 years ago. People flocked to the Sydney Opera House simply because of the fact that they saw me on television. I had no credentials whatsoever. This project has been shown over and over and over all over the world, in Europe, in Asia, Latin America. I cannot begin to tell you how much this has changed my life. I have actually adopted this character as a full-fledged performance art piece, where I go around the world explaining to people what we did, what the circumstances surrounded this were, what the reaction was, and what lessons were there we learned. I am especially happy that Hispanic television called me and said that they wanted to do like a 5-minute piece. on the Carlos project. They end up doing a whole hour show in the most successful TV program that they have in Univision, which is a specific chain of Hispanic television. It was the most successful show. They have run it time and time again. We now have a very big platform in Latin America to speak. And the fun has never stopped because of that. We just came from China. We also appear in the most successful shows in China called Focus and To Tell the Truth. I also went there, spoke about the project, how it was set up by Australian television, Mr. Randi and myself, and what happened. It's been really incredible to see the reaction of people in every country. And like I said, especially in Latin America, because we are plagued by charlatans, people who say that we have powers. I am not a scientist, I'm just a performance artist. I feel very privileged that I have worked with Mr. Randi. He's the face of the skeptic movement. He's the lead investigator of paranormal claims. I am very happy that we have shared some projects together. And I wanted to thank Barry Williams, the Australian Skeptics, all of you, the organizers, for giving me the chance to be here once again. Thank you very much.
I'd like to mention that in his performance as Carlos in China, in one program, he was seen by over 50 million people. Those are numbers you just have to deal with, folks. That number of people were exposed to the Carlos character. And that Carlos character has been responsible for pushing our work ahead enormously around the world. He will move in, he will perform the character, but he always makes sure that people know that this is a performance art piece, that this is not a deception. He's not trying to convince anybody he has genuine powers. And when we went into it here in Australia, the agreement in advance was that it would be exposed a week later on 90 minutes, was it? 60 minutes. I always think you do things on a larger scale. So that, ladies and gentlemen, was the return of Carlos. Now, I have another piece of tape to show you. This piece of tape deals with a subject which, is perhaps a little difficult to watch. It involves blood and guts all over the place. For one of Dick Smith's films, James Randi in Australia, I think it was Imagine It Would Be Titled, some years ago. I performed it. I did it under cameraman or your producer or somebody? A rather rotund gentleman, I remember, but... yes, that's right, it was Bob, yes, the director, yes. And we laid him on the table and took all kinds of terrible things out of his body. I'm sure he feels much better. But I never sent him the bill today, and I forgot about that, yes. Oh, I see. Oh, all right. That was a very effective film that Dick produced, and I think it informed a few people along the way. I certainly hope that it did. This psychic surgery thing that is done in the Philippines is rather insidious. I found out some years ago when I met Peter Sellers for the one and only time that I ever spoke with him. I met him at Pinewood Studios outside London, UK. And I asked him about this business of visiting the psychic surgeons, and he described to me in breathless wonder how they reached into his body and took tumors out, and blood clots, particularly blood clots. He was fairly full of tumors and blood clots that he didn't even know about. And he said they never charged me, but he gave them a very substantial donation each time he was there. I donate money to restaurants when I go in too. And, or else they think rather badly of me and follow you outside on the street. I only asked him one question. I said, but how do you know that it's the real thing? And he said, all I know is my doctors told me 2 years ago that I had to have a bypass and I'm not about to have a heart bypass. I'm just not going to submit myself to that brutalizing procedure. He said, but when I go to the Philippines, I go there every 6 months, and I am relieved of my problems. His doctors had a different story to tell altogether. It was getting worse and worse. He was getting more occlusion of the coronary arteries, but he decided not to see it that way. He believed he was being healed. He said, I saw it with my own eyes. My question to him was, who else's eyes might you have seen it with? And that did not amuse him at all. Several weeks after that, he was dead. He had a fatal heart attack. He was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. And we lost Peter Sellers. We lost a lot of other people, too. Thousands of them over the years have run off to the Philippines to be operated on. Well, I went to my good friend Johnny Carson, who you just saw on that screen there, and I gave him this particular number to do as well, because people from California particularly, there's California again, California were running off to the Philippines in great numbers. And he put me on the program doing my demonstration of psychic surgery. And what you're about to see, folks, is far better than what the psychic surgeons in the Philippines do. It really is. I'm a professional, and I've got a certain flair there doing this sort of thing. And what I do is far more skillful and more entertaining, because I put a joke into it in the middle, as you'll see in a moment. They don't have to be good, because they've already got people believing it. They can do any damn thing they want there with the blood and guts, and people ooh and ah over it because they don't understand it. I remember that in Seattle, Washington, there was an interview, which I have on videotape, back at the office in Florida. Frightening thing, where a fundamentalist minister is sitting there beaming in smiles, and the host of the program is saying, but we did an analysis of the blood on the undergarments of the people that you sent to the Philippines for these operations, Reverend, and it turns out to be chicken blood. And he smiled, he said, yes, I'm aware of that. Well, how do you explain that, Reverend? He said, because only Almighty God can change human blood into chicken blood. This is the rationalization these folks go through, and it's the thing we fight all the time. Let's take a look at this cut and tape, and you may find it a little bit gory. I hope you do.
Of what the psychic surgeons in the Philippines actually do on people who go down there and pay good money, you all say.
Indeed.
All right, we have our patient. It's all yours.
Oh, okay. Now, this is the time to look away if you need to, because it's going to get a little gory from now on. The psychic surgeons in the Philippines are, everything's Sandy, okay?
Everything's fine.
They're pretty heartless folks. They just don't much care for the feelings of people. They don't certainly care for their health at all. And of course, they're not in any way trained to do this sort of thing. They just put on an act as if they are trained. Now, what you're about to see is a bare-handed operation which appears to take place by actually penetrating the body. Believe me, what you're seeing is strictly special effects. It's sleight of hand and nothing more. And this is the way it looks. Anything that gets down there, don't get it on your trousers if you can help it. Let me see.
It'll feel any better? And the strange thing is, after this operation is all over, now mind you folks, I want you to bear in mind, please, that people are showing this as if it were really serious, as if it actually did take place, and as if surgery were really performed. People do this, they go to the Philippines, they spend their money, and they frankly return home, in most cases, to die. It's a little bit funny to watch it perhaps, and you say, gee, I know it's play acting. It's not play acting when they go, by the tens of thousands every year. Sanford, I want to thank you for being a wonderful volunteer. I think you deserve a round of applause for that. I never did send them in the bill any more than I did Bob, so I don't know. I just have to have a billing department going to work here, I guess. Folks, this can look like a clown act up there. And yes, it is. When they do it or when I do it. It's something that a lot of people take seriously. A lot of people travel off to the Philippines when they're desperate and they think that they're going to get help. An excellent program was done in the UK some years back, quite some years back, a good 20 years, I guess, ago now, in which a plane load of people were tracked as they went off to the Philippines for this kind of treatment. I believe there were 13 people on the plane. They came back, none of them healed in any degree whatsoever, and they showed them as they descended the gangplank coming down out of the plane. They interviewed each one of them, and every one of them, big smiles, oh, I'm healed, thank you, Jesus, I'm healed. The whole thing. 11 of them were dead within 2 weeks. One gentleman who was going blind had completely gone blind by then. It's astonishing. People don't learn from this. They simply don't learn from this. And that's what our job is, to try to get the word to them and to try to make it convincing to them that they should be listening. I said it earlier, and I'll say it again. There is no amount of evidence that will convince the true believer. They will turn it against you. They will subvert it. They will do anything they can with it to make it fit somehow their philosophy, their needs. And that's the big word here, need. They don't just want it to be true. They need it to be true. Desperately need it to be true, and they will stretch their belief systems in any direction at all in order to make us wrong and make the psychics and the charlatans out there right. So don't think that you're going to get these people to change their minds. They won't. Your job, my job, I believe, and I say this from many decades of experience in this field, is to get young people who have not yet fallen into that belief structure, who don't yet need it to be true, and try to get them to think about it critically. Now, I can't prove a negative. I often get people in audiences that say, oh, can you prove that ESP doesn't exist, Mr. Randi? I say, no. And they say, well, doesn't that mean that you're wrong, that we're right? No. I don't say it doesn't exist. You say it does? Prove it to me. And I've got $1 million prize that I'm going to offer as well. I'm going to give you an example of how you can't prove a negative as I close this lecture, this evening, as I do with most of my lectures around the world. Proving a negative is very difficult, and I'll give you an example. Now, suppose you take, all right, Santa Claus. Oh, this is very bright, especially as the end of the year comes around. I'm very popular in December, I can assure you. And on the 26th, I'm not so popular because they didn't get the pony. You find that problem? And the Santa Claus legend is very strong, of course, in all parts of the world under different names. In America, we favor the idea that 8 tiny reindeer fly through the air pulling a sleigh full of toys, you see. Come on. But, hey, a lot of people believe it. They're usually about this size. But they believe it, and it's
It's fun and it's mythology, and they'll eventually grow out of it. And it's a good thing for kids to have something like that going for them to entertain them. But not when they're this big. Only when they're about this big. I can't prove that Santa Claus doesn't exist. No, can't do it. I can give you a pretty good case against it. I can take, for example, oh yeah, all right, one example you can take is flying reindeer. Hey, you can do that. Yeah, I can devise a test. Let me see. Can reindeer fly? All right, I'll propose this test then. We'll take 100 reindeer and number them on the side, take them up top of the Sydney Opera House. Don't laugh, this is science now, come on. And we get up there and we say, are you ready? Okay. Got the video camera going? Good, okay. Whoa. Okay, number one, over here. Ready? Fly! Write down after number one, no. Number two, come on, where are you, number two? Here you are, get out here, get out here. All right, number two, no, he just wasn't trying. I know you can do it. Come on, come on, come on, fly! Just use ditto marks. That way, save your writing. Yeah, that didn't work too well either. You go on and you do the experiment. This is science, you see. Now, I don't know what we're going to get, but based upon my admittedly meager knowledge of the aerodynamics of reindeer, I believe that we're going to get a pile of very unhappy and broken reindeer right there at the parking lot. And they're not going to look too good. And there'll probably be a couple of security guards looking up and saying, I don't know either, here comes another one. Probably something like that. Now, what have we proven at the end of this experiment? We haven't proven the reindeer can't fly. We've only shown that these 100 reindeer, on this occasion, under these circumstances, either could not fly or chose not to. If the latter, we have learned something about the IQ of reindeer. Right. But we have not proven there are not 8 tiny reindeer at the North Pole who, on the evening of December the 24th, each and every year, can and do fly and pull a big sled full of toys. Proving a negative is very difficult. Almost impossible in some cases. But you're not making the claim. They're making the claims. Demand that they prove their claims. And remember, if any of you come up with one of these claims that does prove to be true, that's eligible for the $1 million prize of the James Randi Educational Foundation. And we welcome you to apply for it on their behalf. There's a finder's fee as well. Yeah. And I'm not too worried about having to sign the check in a big hurry. However, it is out there as a token of good faith. And that's what it's all about, folks. It is a token of my good faith in my belief of years and years and years of research on these things, that these things are just not so. Carl Sagan shared that opinion. Carl Sagan. When I was doing one of my television shows in China just now, I was given a copy of The Demon Haunted World in Chinese. I'm so happy to see that it is circulating in China now. The Demon Haunted World is a wonderful book, a very strong book, Carl's last book, and one in which he really summed up his whole life as a skeptic and as a critical thinker. An absolutely astonishing book, and one chapter entirely is given to the Carlos episode that you just witnessed illustrated here on the stage. Carl, I miss him a lot. Miss him a lot. He was one of the great voices of reason that we could do with, and we need a lot more of. But at the same time, if we don't have someone like Carl Sagan who's colorful and has academic degrees and such, we have to go out and do that work ourselves. Now, I don't have those academic degrees, but I do have a certain amount of flair, and I do have a certain amount of showmanship, and that sort of thing works for me. And this is what I tell kids particularly. I say, you know, when I was 10 years of age, I had to make a decision. I had to decide whether to go with the paranormalists and all their spooky, mysterious and mystical stuff, or go with real science. And I decided to go with real science. It's this way. We're told that some of our ancestors, at least, came from caves at one time, a long, long time ago. They came from caves. Now, I've been in caves, nasty places. You don't want to go there, believe me. Believe me, nasty, damp. You don't want to live in a cave, I can guarantee it. But the paranormalists, those people with the funny hats and the horoscope on the wall behind them, and the advertisements and the periodicals and whatnot, and on the television, these are the people who are saying to you, in essence, you are not the dignified, capable, responsible human being, a member of a species that has done wonderful, wonderful things. I just walked on the Great Wall of China. We did that. Oh, not our particular variety of this species? No, the Chinese people did. But they did it a long time ago, and it's a magnificent thing. And we went to the moon. Oh, not anybody in this room, no, not I, certainly. We went to the moon. We went to the moon. I just had a VIP tour of the Houston Space Flight Center. You know, when I tell people this, if they don't get excited, there's something wrong with their imagination. I got in a white suit with a whole thing and a mask and everything else and special gloves, and they took me in there, and I handled moon rocks. I handled moon rocks. I held pieces of the moon, which is 250,000 miles out in space. I held it in my hand, and several of them, and I looked at them. It's an awesome experience. We went to the moon and brought pieces of it back so that folks like I could look at it and say, wow, that's a piece of the moon. Do you need anything more? Do you need anything more beautiful and exciting? And hey, look at a puppy dog. Look at a newborn baby, a moon rock, all of these things. These are real things that we can handle. We don't need these mystics. We don't need these people. So I tell the kids, the choice I made was to not go back into the caves, but to go forward. Not backwards, forward. We've been to the moon. We're obviously going to go to Mars. That's going to be quite an adventure too. Wow. Oh, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, all those things. You know, they're too big for one thing, except for Pluto. It's too small. You know, heavy, methane. You don't want to know about that. Pretty bad atmosphere, I'd say. And Mercury and Venus, far too hot. Whoa, whoa, oh boy. Hey, get me off of this. Yeah, no, that's not. But Mars, yeah. Difficult? Yes. But because it's difficult doesn't mean we won't do it. It was hard to go to the moon, and we did, and we came back, and we'll go to Mars, and we'll come back because that's who we are. We're very special folks, and we can do it, and we will do it. And beyond that, as Carl Sagan once said, you're made of star stuff. Yeah. The molecules and atoms that your bodies are made of, and that this whole place is made of, or once at the heart of a star someplace, many, many years ago. And through a gradual process, the lighter elements turned into the denser elements, and here we are, and pretty well organized, I would say. We are made of star stuff, and I think that means, as Carl did, that we're going to go back to the stars. To the stars. Just think about it. The mind boggles. The choice is simple. Back into the caves, or go to the stars. When I was 10 years of age, I made the decision, I think I'll go to the stars. The hell with the caves. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to the stars. I invite you to join me. Will you? Thank you.